Chintu came from two main sources. Firstly, it came from my father's mental illness, the anxiety that comes from having a person in the family with mental illness and the fears that perhaps it runs in the family and all of you will catch it. So I started to explore my fears, and I also got a job working as a support worker for mentally ill people. And there I found out that mental illness was actually not just mental illness as a block of illness, but it had variations. So you had schizophrenia, you had depression, and that helped me to, categorize it. But the novel then developed into something bigger because I started to see Africa presented as this place of madness, and then that extended the theme and the ideas that I was playing around with in the beginning. So the novel came from these two elements, both Africa or Uganda and my father's mental illness. Though the book took a long time to write, it must have been knocking about in my head for perhaps 3 or 4 years before I put pen on paper. And then I had it with me for 13 years before it came out as a published book. But perhaps I had it for 10 years. But the actual writing is perhaps 4.5 years, because I started in 2003 and wrote for 1.5 months. Then I went back to it in 2005, wrote for another 1.5 months. Then 2007, 1.5 months. But then in 2008, I got a mentorship where I had to send in, something like 6,000 words every month. So I sat on it seriously and came up with a draft, And then in 2008, I worked on it again. But I seriously started working on the novel as in terms of I'm going to get this book published in 2010 or 2005. Chintu is just a novel about a man, a Uganda man in 1750 who, while he traveled, kills his adoptive son, and unfortunately when he returns home, he fails to tell his family and the adoptive father about it. And the adoptive father, rather the real father, the biological father of the boy, starts to suspect, and he asks what happened to his son. But the chief fails to tell him, and he curses him that if his son is dead, then him and his family would suffer through the ages. So then the book jumps to 2004 actually, and we see how this man's descendants are faring. So it jumps from 1760 to 2004, and along the way it dips back into 1930 or 1960 or the 1970s, but it focuses mainly on the history of Uganda. And the significance of this book is that Chintu is the first man on earth in Uganda creationist myth. So the book, basically by its title, is telling you that this is a book about the history and the beginnings of Uganda and Buganda. And it takes you through the history of colonization and post-colonization. It's funny about prizes. When you're writing, you're not thinking about winning prizes. The first thing in your mind is, will this book be published? So, you can only win prizes when the book is published. And then you're thinking, will people understand what I'm saying? Will they enjoy what I'm saying? Will I get in trouble with what I'm saying? Those are the questions on your mind when you're writing. So I didn't think about the book winning a prize, but I was very, very lucky that at this point, when the book was finished, there was a competition for non-published manuscript. So I jumped on it and sent it to Kenya, and I found out through our website, the African Writers Trust website, they had posted that on their website, and someone sent a link to me. I think it was my supervisor, Graham Mott. So I sent in my book, and thankfully it won. How important was this? Kwani launched my career as a writer. Winning that prize brought a lot of attention to my writing and to me as a person, because I remember when I won the Kwani prize, I was reading all sorts where people asked me, who is she? Where is she? Including Ugandans. No one knew about me. So yes, Kwani brought attention to my writing. At the moment, it looks like a lot of voices are coming out of East Africa because of the groundwork that was started way back in the 80s and 90s by some really fearless people, especially women in Uganda, who formed an organization called Femrite. These people started writing in the dark without knowing what will happen to their writing, without help from anywhere, but they wrote anyway. And they started workshops and seminars and helped a lot of women in Uganda writing. But it was also happening in Kenya as well. And now we're seeing the fruits of their initiative, 10, 20 years later. So this is why it suddenly looks like writing is coming out of East Africa. And it's mainly Kenya, Uganda, and perhaps Somalia, because Somalia is now considered part of East Africa. There hasn't been a lot coming out of Tanzania, but we're hoping because of this boom, yes, there will be our Tanzanian brothers and sisters will be joining in the writing boom. But it is an exciting moment to be from East Africa, and I think most East African writers are quite proud. I wouldn't say it's a new genre coming out of Africa. I think it's a genre that has been, but no one has taken it seriously, because in the beginning, African writing was so concentrated on focusing on coloniality and colonization. So most of the writing has been focused on what happened during colonization and what happened after colonization. But I come at a time when I think all those concerns are no longer at the forefront of our attention. So I have the luxury of looking back before colonization and asking questions: what was going on? What had happened at the time? How did we help colonization to happen anyway? And then I can jump forward and look at what is happening to us now. So it's not necessarily a genre that is just starting, but it's because a lot of African writers did look at it as important. And I suspect there might be some writers out there who've written about the histories of their countries, but perhaps we don't know about them. Perhaps they haven't captured the attention of the international world. So I wouldn't look at it as a new genre coming out of Africa. I have no fears for Chintu, the novel, because it does not follow the main structure of a Western novel where you have only one character and you follow the experiences of that character to the end. My novel has 6 main characters, and it doesn't worry me at all that Western readers are going to find problems with it. I mean, I grew up on Shakespeare, I grew up on Dickens and Jane Austen, and these people were talking about a world that I've never seen, that I don't know about. They talk about winter. You find Uganda on the equator and we have no idea what snow looks like. But somehow we read these books and understood them and enjoyed them. So I wasn't so worried about Western readers that they won't understand the book. They will, I believe, they will understand it. And this is also to show the world that there are so many ways of writing a novel, and this is one way that has come out of Africa. So I am not worried at all. If the West wasn't worried about Africans understanding their novels, how can I worry about them understanding an African novel? We have approached quite a few publishers, and but also there's a small publisher who's quite excited about the book, and he wants to publish it. And I quite like his idea, because he just wants to go and publish this book, and he has such strong feelings for it. But at the moment I'm watching whoever will nurture this book the best way in the West. That's the one I'll go with. I'm working on my second novel, and boy, now I have more respect for people who have published more than one novel, because it's hard work. Sometimes I enjoy it and this book flows quite easily. Sometimes it's really like pulling a cart uphill. So I'm working on a novel that has more focus on feminist issues in Uganda, and I hope to finish it by 2016. Mostly I write to entertain. I would like to, tell people about Uganda and bring Uganda to their knowledge and tell another side of Uganda, because Uganda at the moment has been known mainly first about Idi Amin, and then we had AIDS, and then sometime we had Ebola, and then there's homophobia. But Uganda is just like any other country. We have our beauty, we have our ugliness, we have our mistakes and our silliness, and I would like to share those. But mostly I would like to talk to Ugandans and bring aspects that we have swept under the carpet or behind the doors, and we pretend they don't exist. These are things I want to pull out in the open, put on the table and say, hey, hello, this is what we do, this is what we are, and have a kind of discussion that is calm and intelligent, because we can do that in a novel. And of course, I would like the world to understand who we are.